Hey everybody, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture. Today, the day this is actually, going out live, is December 31st, 2025, New Year's Eve. Congratulations to everybody who made it through this year, hoping for a great 2026 ahead. And I thought it'd be fun to look at another Rankin-Bass holiday film that is maybe not as well known. Maybe not quite as well known as some of the real classics like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or Frosty or Santa Claus is Coming to Town. A Year Without a Santa Claus has become a lot bigger over the years. We're going to take a look at a film called Jack Frost. 1979, directed by Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr., written by Romeo Muller. Great little fairy tale. Let's jump into this one here. Our story opens with a montage of magazine covers and Dave Garroway, founding host of the Today Show, going live to inform us that the world's most famous groundhog, Pardon Me Pete, is about to emerge from his hole to determine if spring is around the corner or if we're going to get 6 more weeks of Jack Frost's winter weather. We are in the late 1970s here. And you can actually tell from the hair on a few of the puppets. I thought it was a nice touch that they do actually kind of look like they're from the 1970s. Well, then we hear a little voice in that groundhog burrow, Pardon Me Pete, played by Buddy Hackett, singing Me and My Shadow and getting ready for his appearance. Now, in the old days, groundhogs would, of course, dress up for this kind of thing. Now they just show up in their pajama bottoms and flip-flops. There's no respect anymore. It's just terrible. Well, he emerges. The cameras flash. He sees the shadow, says, "Pardon me," and scurries back into his burrow. But how could this be? It's cloudy. How could there be a shadow? I smell conspiracy. This leads into the Christmas song, Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, and Jack Frost, of course, nipping at your nose, as illustrated by a roasted chestnut salesman, and Jack Frost literally nipping at Garroway's nose. And then we see Pete down in his burrow, back in his nightshirt, telling us that, unbeknownst to the world above, what he saw was a magic shadow, Jack Frost's shadow. And in fact, it is a conspiracy between Pete and Jack. Jack gets 6 more months of winter fun, and Pete gets 6 more months of hibernation. You see, you never see Jack Frost because he's invisible. Nobody has ever seen him, except that one time that he became human. And this leads into an original song about winter and the title sequence. This TV special, like I said, aired on NBC December 13th, 1979. I would have been 7 at the time, and I honestly have no memory of it at all. Some of these were not as widely shown as others. As I said, it was directed by Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr., with music and lyrics by Maury and Jules Bass, frequent collaborators. Romeo Muller wrote the story, as he did for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, The Little Drummer Boy, Frosty the Snowman, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which is my personal favorite, Rankin-Bass, and Rudolph's Shiny New Year, which I reviewed on this channel last year. You might want to check that one out. Cinematography is by Akikazu Kono, Ichiro Komuro, Hiroshi Tabata, Seiichi Araki. Yes, the puppet work was being done in Japan in those days. Sadly, Godzilla never makes an appearance in one of these. Paul Coker Jr. did the design work, and there are some very cool designs in this. And it's one of the reasons I'm doing the review. Just some of the imagery is really, really good. Well, once upon a snowflake, far, far away, in a distant time and place, there was a little town called January Junction. Thus begins our tale. It is set about a month before Christmas, and pumpkin peasants are harvesting their crop. But they're having trouble because instead of a team of horses to pull loads around, they have a dog and a duck. The couple only have one copper kaputnik to their name, and Mama is pretty surprised that Papa even has that. Dee Stratton voices Mama in this one, and Papa is voiced by Larry Storch. This is a very fairy tale beginning to the story. It's a nice bit of work. And also anytime you can introduce, quacking into a scene, I think you're better off. Well, Papa hid the copper piece from Kubla Kraus so he could buy Christmas presents, but Mama is worried. After all, a kaputnik is only worth 1/100 of a penny, so why take the chance with Kubla Kraus? And when Kubla Kraus, voiced by Paul Frees, you knew he was going to get in here somewhere. When he arrives, you understand why you might not want to risk things. He is not a very cool dude, but a very cool design for the king of the Cossacks riding a mechanical horse, big and burly. He has a literal steel fist. Well, he smells a Kaputnik, and he must have it, and he won't take no for an answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our villain, but what about our hero? Well, Papa bemoans his lack of money, and Mama reminds him that soon he'll have ice money because Jack Frost is on his way. I know it sounds like he's, selling. No, it's nothing like that. Ice money's coming because Jack Frost is on his way, and indeed she is right as he dives in and puts a little frost on their pumpkins. The people of January Junction love winter because of the ice money. Kubla Kraus takes all of their real money for taxes, but when Jack Frost comes, he makes pretty icicles, and the people saw them into ice coins and use them for money until they melt, and they have to go back to charging everything. Believe it or not, there are Ivy League educated economists out there who essentially want us to do something like this in our own economic system. We'll get into that. Well, Jack, being invisible, enjoyed spending time with all the peasants, watching them spend their ice money, and it was while doing this that he first met Elisa. Elisa is voiced by Debra Klinger, who was part of a family quartet from Utah, later recorded songs for the Mattel tie-in Rock Flowers toys, and she played Super Chick on the Croft Super Show. She's the one with the normally colored hair there, who's a woman. Well, she wants to go walk through a winter wonderland, perhaps to see Jack's handiwork before it is spoiled. But Mama thinks she should stop being so romantic and find a good, sturdy husband. What we have here in this film is really a new fairy tale, a little new mythology that works within the patterns of old stories. The poor but honest peasants oppressed by a cruel king, an elemental spirit falling in love with a mortal girl. Romeo Muller does a nice job of picking up those things and putting them into a story that, that makes pretty good sense. Well, Jack Frost spies on this conversation, and his hat stands on end when she says she might only be in love with Jack Frost. Now, of course, she was sort of joking, but Jack thought she was serious, and this is when he first starts thinking about being human. Well, while Elisa is out ice skating on a frozen river with the forest animals, very Snow White of her, Kubla Kraus shows up with his steam-powered horse and tries to cross on the ice, breaking it all up and putting Elisa into danger because, of course, there's a waterfall nearby. There's always a waterfall nearby in cartoons and animation. But Jack Frost leaps into action, whistling up a frost and freezing the water. Elisa then slides off the frozen waterfall and gently to the frozen river below. Not exactly sure how or why this happened, but we'll roll with it. It's not exactly physics, but it's a little Jack Frost magic. She's so happy, she calls Jack Frost a hero, and that kind word pretty much, ties him up for good. He is smitten. Let's throw up our spoilers sign as we go forward on this one. Well, like I said, Jack is smitten, and he now knows for certain he must become a human being, which makes him happy and sad at the same time, they say in this one, which I thought is a really great way to describe, being in love and maybe, needing to go and, do things that are a little scary to you. Well, he flies into the sky to his magical home, and on the way, he sings about how lonely it is to be one of a kind. Now, up in the sky is the great kingdom of winter clouds, and the ruler of this land is Edgar Winter himself. No, Father Winter himself. In his kingdom, he has many assistants, such as Snip, the snowflake maker. Up here, Snip gets calls for snowflake orders. He has thousands, millions of snowflakes to design, each unique, but he doesn't appear to be in a hurry. Thus, it gives a kind of a timeless fairy tale quality to the story, kind of like the way Santa can deliver presents to all the good boys and girls across the world. Although, again, if Santa's standards of good are really, really high, there may not be many good children in the world, technically, to get gifts directly from Santa. Maybe that's why most of us never actually saw him show up at our house. Enough of that, though. The snowflakes are delivered by the thousands of snow gypsies who fling them exactly where Father Winter wants them when Snip makes a really perfect snowflake. good enough for Christmas snow, he summons Holly, the Christmas snowflake snow gypsy, to tuck it away from later. There are also the Sleet Sisters and the Hail Fellow. So there's a few characters up there. Well, Jack has a chat with Snip, who is surprised to see him. And he assures him he has everything frosted down there, so the Christmas snowflakes will not melt. This just might be a plot point. He tells Snip that he's going to ask Father Winter to turn him into a human. Snip does not seem to think this is going to go very well. Father Winter considers this outright insubordination. This is basically a bit of chaos intruding into the natural order. But if Jack is insubordinate, it's because Father Winter sends him alone down among the humans every year. He asks why, if he is to spread joy, he cannot share it as well. Father Winter tells him it's because he would be a stranger to their ways. None of them really want to know Jack Frost. But Jack Frost replies that one of them does. Father Winter, grant my dream come true. And he breaks into song here. I'd like to be like everyone I see, etc. Well, since Jack feels so lonely, Father Winter must grant his wish, at least temporarily. He gets one winter in which to be human. If by the first day of spring he has acquired the human essentials, a house to shelter him, a horse to bear him, a bag of gold to sustain him, and a wife to make it all worth the while, then he will be truly human and may stay so, with Father Winter's blessings. This again is classic storytelling, the provisional wish, the list of items he has to kind of quest for, very nicely done. All the elements are really there. Before Jack leaves, Snip gives him a pair of his scissors to remember him by, and he falls back to Earth, and as he's falling, he turns into a human with a heartbeat and an itchy nose. He thinks it's wonderful. I have words now. I think I almost spoke one. I have bones now. I think I almost broke one. That's when he hits the ground. Jack lands right near Elisa, and he soon lands right on his rear when he slips on the ice. She helps him up and finds his name is Jack Snip, the tailor, and she suggests he stay in January Junction. Now, since he is rather clumsy and in over his head, and since no harm must come to Jack Frost, Father Winter sends Snip and Holly down to Earth as humans as well until the spring, so we have now assembled our team. Elisa, meanwhile, has invited Jack to dinner. Papa slices a baked potato and tells Jack to eat hearty and curse Kubla Kraus. Now, I do want to point out, and it may be difficult to see, but I really like the way they paint the eyes on the puppets in this, especially Elisa and Jack. It's kind of like almost like a starburst pattern to make them seem more alive. It's very subtle, and probably especially on an old TV set, but I think it's a really nice touch. Well, Elisa invites Jack to stay with her parents, but he insists he must find a house. Unfortunately, there are no vacant houses in January Junction. It's a really tight real estate market up there. So Jack has his first real challenge since becoming human. He decides he's going to have to build one. But Mama tells him that Kubla Kraus owns all the timber. Moreover, he owns the only horses and all the gold. He is the Cossack king, but even the Cossacks couldn't stand him, so they all left. He now lives alone in his castle, high on Miserable Mountain. And naturally, since he has been described as alone, that shot of him in his throne room, is really, really good. Shows how empty the place is and maybe how empty his heart is. It's just good visual storytelling. Well, Kubla Kraus sings us a song here. Kubla Kraus, I'm king of all the Cossacks, but there are no Cossacks to be king of. There's the rub, there's the rub. Very nice design work on Kubla. Note the resemblance to a traditional nutcracker, the way his teeth are. Well voiced, of course, by Paul Frees. And I wonder if musicals like Fiddler on the Roof influenced the song a little bit. It's got sort of a Russian thing. He does a little bit of the dance. I rule with an iron hand. I get whatever I demand. I own the people and the land. So why is it I'm not happy? I don't understand. And of course, we get the traditional Russian dancing at that point. Now, remember that Father Winter said that Jack would need a wife to make it all worthwhile. A little foreshadowing here, I'm thinking, for Kubla Kraus. Notice also the use of color in this film. Father Winter's world is all icy shades. You get earthy colors for the peasants and January Junction, and this reddish hue for Kubla Kraus. Again, great design work. Now, because no humans or animals would live with Kubla, he had to make them out of iron. There was Clang Stomper, the horse, which sounds like a name out of Norse mythology, who ran on steam, and Fetch Kvetch, the butler, who ran on clockwork, and his army of Knights in grimy armor, Canute, Knick, Norman, Nathan, and all the rest of them, each lifeless with a motor for a heart, but each one mean and nasty just the same. Even the mice were artificial. This show should be required viewing for all those who adore steampunk. This is your steampunk holiday special. And this does set up, of course, a conflict of nature versus, man, love versus greed. There's magic versus technology. You get the idea. And there's also Domi, a hand puppet that Kubla Kraus talks to. Domi, on my knee, who's as handsome as can be? Kubla is one weird and wicked dude, and I friggin' love him as a villain. Well, at this moment, Snip and Holly arrive at Papa and Mama's house, and Jack knows that with his friends at his side, Kubla Kraus's days are numbered. The next morning, they set out to climb Miserable Mountain, but it's like a pyramid of ice and seemingly unclimbable. While Jack is trying to climb, Kubla spots Elisa and decides he will make her his wife. What a lucky girl. And he sings, "She is beautiful, and therefore I will woo her." And it's a duet that he sings with his puppets. It's great. Well, giving up on climbing Miserable Mountain, Jack instead starts his tailor shop. And who should walk in but Sir Ravenel Rightfellow, voiced by Sonny Melendrez, the knight in golden armor that Elisa has been dreaming of. He has come back, and probably the last guy Jack wanted to see. Sir Ravenel is looking for a tailor to mend his cape. He's home for the holidays after leaving January Junction as a child to join King Arthur as a page or something like that. At any rate, Elisa is completely smitten by this guy. Well, the next day is Christmas, and that morning the family gets together and give each other dream presents. It's an empty box, and each person pretends it is exactly what they wanted. And there's another song here. It's just what I always wanted, a Christmas delight. Very nice. But Sir Ravenel gives Elisa a real present, a beautiful red rose. He asks her to the Christmas dance, and she accepts. Well, on the way home, she meets Domi from behind a bush, basically. He refers to her as a New Year's bride. But I'm not a New Year's bride. And then Kubla springs up with a, "That's what you think," and off he goes, carrying her away to his castle. It's pretty funny as he describes his eyes like pool, his lips like rose petals. So he's supposed to be wooing her, but he's describing how beautiful he is. Fortunately for Elisa, their family duck happened to be visiting relatives in the woods, so he sees the abduction and he flies off to raise the alarm. So off go the heroes, Sir Ravenel packing a crossbow, the rest on a sledge. I distinctly remember that this was on the cover of the old VHS tape of this, back in my video store days. The crew is just fast enough to see Kubla enter a secret door into the base of his mountain. And I love this shot of Sir Ravenel and his crossbow, because I'm a D&D geek, I can't help it. He fires a bolt up to the castle with a rope, tied to it, and then he climbs up. Real action hero, this guy. Jack laments that he just can't do anything right as a human being, but Snip convinces him to try the other side of the mountain. Maybe he could climb up there. While Sir Ravenel takes on the clockwork Knights, defeats them, and rescues the damsel in distress. There are really some great camera angles in this scene. It's very well done. It's not, you don't get as much of the battle as you do like with Jason and the Argonauts fighting the skeletons, but they do a nice little stop motion fight between Sir Ravenel and the Knights. But in the process, Sir Ravenel is wounded, and so they rush him home to tend his wounds. Meanwhile, Jack, Snip, and Holly are captured by some of the remaining Knights. So they're at the mercy of Kubla Kraus, and Kraus declares he will send 1,000 Knights to destroy the town and everything in it. The heroes are thrown into a dungeon. What can they do? Well, Jack thinks that a really once-in-a-lifetime blizzard could stop Kubla Kraus in his tracks. Without their powers, though, they can do nothing. So Jack calls on Father Winter to change him back. He gives up his humanity to save the woman he loves and his new friends, and he does so without hesitation. It's a really nice depiction of a happy sacrifice in the name of love, and again reinforces the fairy tale aspect of the story. Very cool use of green screen here, by the way. The clouds in the background behind the castle actually might have been blue screen at the time. They used blue before green. So while Jack whistles up the Christmas blizzard of all time, the Clockwork Army is buried in the snow, and Jack keeps whistling for 5 full weeks. He buries Miserable Mountain, and his aim is so good, he spares January Junction from all of the snow. Well, back in January Junction, Elisa tends Sir Ravenel's wounds, and he tells her that he'll be well by spring. They'll be wed when the first blossoms arrive. And Elisa is happy, but she wishes she knew what happened to Jack, and she wants him to be at her wedding. She only knew him for a few weeks, but it seemed like she knew him her whole life. It is then that all of Jack's whistling stops, resulting in more snow, for it is an early spring. He implores Father Winter, "You must keep the snow going to stop Kubla Kraus from destroying January Junction." But it's not up to Father Winter. He takes his orders from nature. And that would probably be that lady right there, if we can believe the year without a Santa Claus. And I'm quite sure that we can. This is where the Groundhog comes back into our story. Nature's sign to Father Winter that it's time for him to go is the Groundhog emerging from his burrow. If he stays outside, then it's time for spring. If, however, he is frightened back into his burrow by seeing his shadow, we get 6 more weeks of winter. Well, Jack realizes that the cloud cover would make a real shadow impossible, but that didn't eliminate the possibility of a magic shadow. And here we get another song from Buddy Hackett. Hey, I've got a day named after me. It's, if you enjoy Buddy Hackett's voice, it's a great song. If you don't, it's a little rough. But the song ends with Jack scaring Pete back into his burrow, and that means more winter. Pete explains that he liked the extra snoozing time so much that he's been letting Jack scare him to this very day. Well, 6 weeks later, of course, Jack is in the same fix that he was before. He pleads with Father Winter to allow him to be human again, just until spring officially starts at 12 noon that very day, with the same restrictions: house, horse, gold, and wife required to remain human. And Jack agrees to those, conditions. But first, he needs to deal with Kubla and save January Junction, so he heads right for the castle. Kubla is excited to see the snow melting. He'll soon have his bride and his revenge. But his stomping around brings down the roof that's been rotted by all the snow, and Jack shows up, and now he knows what he needs to do. So he imitates Kubla's Domi voice to command the Knights to march right off the mountainside, and they do, to their destruction. Well, Kubla wakes up. I love how Jack throws Domi right into his face here, and Kubla makes a mad dash towards Jack, who ducks, and Kubla flies out the window, and Father Winter, using the wind he creates, blows him far, far away. So Jack decides that he now has a house of his own, Kubla's castle, and he now has a horse, Kubla's steampunk mount, and plenty of gold. All he needs now is a wife. But heading into town, he soon discovers that Elisa is to marry Sir Ravenel. The ceremony is at 12 noon, Jack's deadline to become human. You see, she never really said that she loved Jack Snip, but she'll always love Jack Frost. Well, at the stroke of 12 noon, Jack Snip turns back into Jack Frost, and he disappears. And as the bride and groom emerge, Jack flies by invisible and frosts the roses. When Sir Ravenel sees that, he asks, well, what just happened? Elisa replies, an old friend kissed the bride. And they wave to Jack, who flies back up into the sky to the strains of, if you try to turn around when you hear his icy sound, he's sure to disappear. But yes, that Jack Frost is here. And that's the story of Jack Frost. I think it's really well done. I mean, first of all, some of the designs are just fantastic. Kubla Kraus, the steampunk horse. I saw this as an adult. It was on some channel, and I was like, dude, that's pretty cool. The steampunk horse and all the Knights and all that stuff. Very D&D if you get right down to it. But it's also a really well done little fairy tale that they put together here. Inspiration from various different places, but they put it together, I think, pretty well. You get love and you get sacrifice and all these great things. think it'd be a great one for kids to watch nowadays, and not too bad for adults as well. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, maybe subscribe, maybe share with a friend. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Especially, I hope everyone has a blessed 2026 and a lot of fun on New Year's Eve, but just, not so much fun that you end up starting 2026 in jail. That would not be any good at all. And I will see you hopefully again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.